Great. First, I'd like to thank and to welcome everyone for joining us today for this webinar on achieving organizational excellence led by Dawn Ringrose. Dawn is a principal at Organizational Excellence Specialist and the author of the Organizational Excellence Framework publication. She is a world-recognized subject matter expert on organizational excellence and excellence models in general, having worked in this area since the mid-'80s. In fact, many of her clients have been recognized with national excellence awards. Over the past 6 years, she has been training professionals in over 20 countries on the Organizational Excellence Framework. Today, we are very excited to have Dawn with us to discuss this topic of achieving organizational excellence. After this webinar, if you're interested in learning more about this topic, she is actually teaching a 7-week program on organizational excellence starting August 8th as part of the FLEVI Executive Learning Series. To learn more or to enroll, you can do so at flevi.com/executive-learning. FLEVI is spelled FLEVY.com. This webinar should provide you a fairly good intro to the materials that will be discussed in greater depth in her program. We will also be recording this webinar, as you can see, and afterwards I'll send an email with a link to that recording. So now, without further ado, I'll turn the floor over to Dawn Ringrose.
Thank you very much, Steve. I'm pleased to be here. This is a topic near and dear to my heart, and I love opportunities to be able to share it with others that are interested as well. I'm going to be talking about achieving organizational excellence today, and I'd like to start by saying that this topic is one of the best kept secrets in the world. That shouldn't be a secret at all. Global research tells us that about 10 to 20% of the working population is familiar with excellence models. And yet, those excellence models provide a tried and true formula for success that has been validated by 25 years of research. It's applicable to any size and any type of organization and at any stage of the life cycle. And if I might just reflect back on my own personal experience, back in the 80s, I had been working at large international consulting firms. I had earned a CMC or Certified Management Consultant designation. I had completed a Master's of Business Administration. And nowhere in any of that experience had I been introduced to excellence models. And I really have to shake my head because since I learned about excellence models, they've really added a lot of value to my practice, to the client organizations that I've served, and any of the business starts that I've been involved in. So in this presentation, I'm going to share a bit of background on excellence models, and I'll introduce you to the Organizational Excellence Framework that can be used with any improvement approach. I'm going to share a simple and straightforward implementation process that can be used with any size and type of organization. And I'll provide some examples of National Excellence Award recipients that have implemented an excellence model and achieved exceptional results. So the initial excellence models were developed in the late 1980s and early 1990s. And these are models like EFQM, Baldrige, the Canadian Framework for Excellence, and the Australian Business Excellence Framework. These frameworks have evolved over time, and other countries have taken these models and adapted them, combined them, and created their own national excellence models. Today, there's about 55 countries that celebrate organizations that have successfully implemented their excellence model and achieved sustainable results across a balanced system of measurement. And we've got 20 years of research that has validated that when you implement an excellence model, you create a culture committed to excellence in an organization, and you achieve exceptional results across a balanced system of measurement. It's a real formula for success. Here's a snapshot of the Organizational Excellence Framework. This framework is rather unique in that it integrates the leading excellence models, and these models have defined the best management practices that are common to high-performing organizations. But this model is a little bit unique in that it fills a gap in the literature and it answers the most frequently asked question, which is how do you implement a given practice? And so it really combines the what we know in organizational excellence with the how we implement it in management consulting. So it's a great guide for the user. And this was authored back in 2010, and it's available for those that want to use it as a handy reference. The diagram shows the key components of the framework. In the inner ring, we have the principles that describe the culture that is committed to excellence. In the middle and outer rings, we have the key management areas that comprise the model. And these key management areas also include performance measures that we can use to measure performance in a given area or for the organization as a whole. It also includes the continuous improvement approach that we want to use in terms of improving any approach or any given practice. Here are the 9 principles that were on the inner part of that diagram. We have leadership involvement, which is ensuring that senior management is committed and actively involved in establishing and communicating the direction of the organization to all of the stakeholders. We have alignment, so an understanding that the organization is a system of interrelated and interconnected work processes, and that all of the activities that the organization is undertaking have to be aligned with the established direction. There's a focus on the customer, ensuring that everyone in the organization really understands who the customer is, what their needs are, and how to meet those needs. People involvement is also a part of this culture, and it's important to be nurturing and reinforcing cooperation and teamwork and giving employees the opportunity to develop their full potential. Prevention-based process management is really just establishing consistency in the way the work is undertaken and developing a mindset of prevention so that you're preventing failures from occurring. Partnership development is developing and maintaining those value-adding relationships that you have with suppliers and partners. Continuous improvement is all about harnessing the collective knowledge, skills, and creativity of all of your stakeholders so that together you're relentlessly pursuing improvement. Data-based decision-making is basing decisions on performance measurement findings. And societal commitment is striving to understand and demonstrate your corporate commitment to society, really making your community a better place. And the key management areas, there's quite a few practices in all of these areas, so I'm not going to go through the long list, but I'll let you know that each of these management areas is where the best management practices are defined. And in the publication that I've authored, it also provides implementation guidelines for the user. But the whole idea is to implement these best management practices successfully and use a balanced system of measurement to monitor your progress, to see what's going well, what needs to improve. And important to note also that micro-size organizations with 1 to 25 employees have quite a fewer practices, of course, to implement than do larger size organizations. So there's an abbreviated system there for those micro-size organizations. Let's just take a look at a few examples of the practices in each of these areas, just to give you a flavor. In the governance area, we have governance responsibility to stakeholders, making sure that you have an effective governance system in place and that your organization is a model of good practice for all stakeholders. In the leadership area, we're working on developing a culture that is committed to excellence, developing a strategic plan and communicating it to all of stakeholders so they understand where the organization is heading. Communicating openly about performance, removing barriers that are getting in the way of good performance. In the planning area, we're developing a business plan that aligns with the strategic direction communicating this plan throughout the organization and to the stakeholders, making sure that we allocate resources to get the goals and objectives that we've set out to do done, and we're monitoring and reviewing the plan on a regular basis and making changes as required. In the customers area, we're understanding and aligning all the employees on who the customer is and what their wants, needs, and expectations are, and making it really easy for the customer to do business with us and provide feedback. In the employees area, this is where we're making sure that all of our human resource planning is aligned with our strategic direction as well. And then we're recruiting and selecting and training and developing people that are going to fit with that strategic direction and the goals and objectives that we set in business planning. And we're wanting to set up a system where we're really welcoming the suggestions and ideas that those employees have on making the organization better, because they're often the source of 90% of improvement activities that are available to an organization, whereas that other 10% might come from outside sources, such as benchmarking and learning from other organizations. In the work process area, here's where we're documenting the way the work is done. We're analyzing those work processes and always working on improving them. And we're benchmarking with others to improve performance. In the suppliers and partners area, this is where we're using criteria to select those that we want to work with and working really hard to develop win-win relationships with them. We're sharing information about our strategic and business plans, and we're working together to develop new products and services and elevated standards. In the resource management area, this is where we're managing all the resources that we need to achieve our plans. Things like our financial resources, our assets, technology, knowledge, transportation. And we're taking a look at those resource requirements that we need, and we're developing a strategy to manage those resources well. Also being careful to manage the adverse impact of operations on the environment and society, and preparing for any resource interruptions. And in the final area, the continuous improvement and performance measurement area, this is where we're evaluating and improving our approach to each key management area. And we're measuring performance in each of these areas. And we're also using measures that will give us a read on the overall organization as well. Now, a very simple and straightforward implementation process when you embark upon an excellence journey is here on the screen. And this is something that I've learned over time and has worked really well for me, and so I'd love to share it with you. I always start by speaking, of course, to leadership and making a presentation to them, about an hour, and talking with them, answering their questions, making sure they feel very comfortable with this and getting their commitment. The next step is always sharing information or training the employees in the organization. It could be all the employees, it could be a good cross-section of people, but here's where it's really important to transfer knowledge so that people really understand what's in an excellence model, why are we doing this, what's in it for us, and they're going to feel very comfortable with participating in an assessment of the organization. And then we engage everyone in self-assessment. We give everybody an opportunity to weigh in and self-assess the organization against the principles and the best management practices and provide their input, not only ratings, but also their open-ended comments. And in addition to engaging everyone in assessment, we've got an automated system that automatically generates an improvement plan. It includes all the aggregated ratings and open-ended comments, and it delivers action plans that are automatically generated. But what this does is it says, okay, here's where we're at in terms of our current state. Here's what we need to do in terms of addressing opportunities for improvement. And the improvement plan includes room for everybody in the organization to work individually or on committees on the improvement initiatives, things that need to be addressed. And so they're all part of implementation of the excellence model. And we provide additional assistance as required if they need some coaching, they need some additional training, they need us to take on some consulting projects. But I found that there's a lot of talent within organizations. The people within organizations are perfectly capable at every level to undertake some of these activities, and that we're there as facilitators or a guide, and we're there to pitch in and roll up our sleeves to help as required. It's really important that everybody's engaged and involved in this excellence journey, because this really helps accelerate the formula for success. And the formula for success that I've found is that when you implement these best management practices, you develop a culture committed to excellence, and you achieve exceptional results across a balanced system of measurement. And this is something that all the national award recipients have demonstrated over time. Now, embedded in the model is this notion, of course, of continual improvement. And there's practices that are aimed at, looking at the organization and what the organization is doing and how it can do things better, such as asking employees for their ideas and suggestions or benchmarking with others. So important to note that that's embedded in this process and in the model itself. And as an organization is moving along on their excellence journey, it's really important to celebrate progress along the way. Now, some organizations that you work with have got a lot of these practices already in place and they're in good shape, but there's maybe a particular key management area or two that needs a bit of work. And so that's where the effort is focused in those sorts of situations. Now, there's a turnkey toolkit that has been developed. And this is a toolkit that I developed because I wanted something to accompany, that build on the publication. And I wanted to design it so it could be used by a consultant that is doing work with organizations in this respect. And it could be used by internal people in an organization that, let's say, are developing a training program or spearheading an area of excellence or the excellence journey. And so it can be used by internal and external professionals, and most of the tools can be customized for the work that you are doing in a particular industry sector. You've got scenario games that pique interest about the current versus future state of the organization, and another scenario game that we're just completing right now that takes a look at decision-making and consequences. We've got the publication that I discussed that provides the foundation for all of this work and just really provides a good, solid reference. We've got 2 types of workshops that support the excellence journey. Holistic workshops that support the entire excellence journey. So this is for organizations that want to eat the whole elephant. But for those organizations that want just to focus on improvement in a key management area, we've got modular workshops for each of the 9 key management areas as well. We've got an automated assessment and reporting tool that saves a lot of time and money because it's doing the work to aggregate all the employee ratings and open-ended comments on the assessment, and it generates this action-oriented improvement plan automatically that just needs to be, assigned. The work needs to be assigned throughout the organization. And this is work that used to take us a couple of days to do that now comes off the system in a minute. There's a train the trainer program for professionals that like to work underneath our umbrella and deliver these programs to others. But the train the trainer program is also for professionals that want to use these tools in their own practice or within their own organization, given their role. And last but not least, there's a benchmarking index so organizations can compare their culture and deployment of best practices to others by industry size, industry sector, and country. So the toolkit is really making this much more time efficient and cost effective than anything else I had come across before. And it dovetails quite nicely with the whole cycle that an organization finds itself going through on an excellence journey, but it dovetails nicely with the professional cycle that they use in order to work with clients in this respect, or if they're looking for organizations that want to do this sort of work and they want to be able to help them along the way, you know, with that holistic or modular approach, it's really can be used quite well across a variety of different scenarios. Here's a look at some of the National Excellence Award recipients. And I've just taken a handful that shows the breadth and depth across industry sectors and across different countries. And I've captured a few here, and they're all in different colors from different countries, starting with Canada on the top left, and followed by the United States, and then Singapore, Europe, and Australia. These are examples of their Gold Award recipients. And these organizations have put an excellence model in place. They've successfully deployed the practices throughout the organization. They've been using a balanced system of measurement, and they've been getting steadily improving results across that balanced system of measurement for at least 3 years before they're recognized. And they're assessed by external assessors that are independent and objective. So this is a very hard to earn this sort of award. So these organizations are all very accomplished in this respect. And there's many more around the world because, as I said before, there's 55 countries that have got National Excellence Award programs. And myself, I've worked with a variety of organizations across sectors. And these have been different size organizations, different types of organizations, and business and government and the nonprofit sector. And some of these have gone on to earn National Excellence Awards. But I must say that the vast majority of organizations that do this sort of work, they're really interested in becoming best in class, becoming high performing, becoming more competitive, you know, really searching for ways of improving their performance. And so we find that most of these organizations are really looking at how do we improve our performance? How do we become the best we can be, as opposed to looking for recognition, external recognition. But the external recognition is also very good because you're really there in a class with those best in class organizations. It's a very coveted award. And here's just a picture. It's kind of reflective of a quote by Thomas Huxley. And he said, "The rung of the ladder was never meant to rest upon, but only to hold a man's foot long enough to enable him to put the other somewhat higher." And this quote really speaks well, I think, to the excellence journey and those organizations that are always striving to be more high performing across a balanced system of measurement. And the journey never really ends. I mean, you can become best in class in your industry sector, but even though you've attained such a level of performance, you've got that culture that's committed to organizational excellence and always getting better and better and better. So these organizations continue to search for ways that they can steadily improve and strive for higher and higher results. So just to sum up, this presentation has really shared the basics of how to set your organization on the path to excellence. And it's provided an introduction to the longer FLEVI Executive Learning Program that we're going to be doing, and it's called Organizational Excellence Defined. I certainly hope those of you on the webinar today are able to join us for the longer series. And I'd like to thank Dave at FLEVI for organizing this webinar, and thank those of you in attendance for your kind attention, and open the session up now to any questions that people might have in the audience.
And just a note, when you join the webinar, you're muted, so you'll need to unmute yourself if you have a question. And if no one chimes in, Dawn, I have a question for you, so we can wait a few seconds first. So Donna, I'm just wondering, how long does it take to implement one of these excellence models?
Well, with the organizations that I've worked with, and these organizations have ranged from, generally organizations that have already got a number of these practices in place, but generally it takes about 3 years. And it takes that length of time because, of course, people in organizations are doing the work that needs to be done, given their position. And then if they're also engaged in being part of this excellence journey and they're working on a given practice that needs to be improved or deployed, it generally takes about 3 years. And I find in the first little while that the first year that organizations are implementing the excellence model, that they say things like, gee, our communication is getting a lot better, or we're getting rid of a lot of duplication. In year 2, I hear, wow, is this ever hitting the bottom line? And that's not only in business, but it's in government too, in terms of, they've got a certain amount of budget to work with, but that's what they notice. And year 3, they've got a, good system in place. They're starting to get good results across their key management areas, and it's the way that they're going to work from here on in. So that's what I typically see. From year 3 on, they're really becoming, steadily improving across a balanced system of measurement, and they're enjoying, great success from their efforts.
So we have a question from the chat room. Let me just read that for you. Are there any related trainings that are key to being successful in the organizational excellence field, such as project management or Lean Six Sigma, Lean management?
Well, yes, there's a lot of providers that provide training in Lean and Six Sigma, and my organization is registered education provider for PMI, and so we offer a course to help project management professionals understand this so they can apply it to a project as well as have a better understanding of how it applies to the larger organization. But, I just want to say something about, related training. There's a lot of related training. There's Lean, there's Six Sigma, there's ISO standards. There's a plethora of approaches out there these days that different groups are providing to help improve the performance of an organization. But most of these things are, a very small part of what an excellence model offers. An excellence model is extremely robust. And so you will find Lean, Six Sigma, ISO embedded within the models. Certainly Lean and ISO are. Six Sigma is an area that if you want to take a deeper dive into the practices that you're deploying in the work processes area, you can choose to become, a Lean, a Six Sigma black belt and so forth, and do that kind of work in your organization. But I must say, and this is speaking as a management consultant, there's a lot of tools and techniques. There's a lot of approaches out there these days, and they work, and organizations will get some results, but they're an absolute subset of what's in a robust excellence model, because the umbrella of an excellence model, it provides such great coverage across the key management areas and the practices that you're just going to, if you're using it, you're just going to end up putting in a very good management system that is going to serve you well over time and allow your organization to steadily improve. And it's a platform for long-term success. Whereas some of these other approaches will give you a short-term burst in terms of success, but they leave out there's some pretty critical areas in a that they leave out and they don't even address. And I've read or I've written a little bit on that topic in the blog on our website. And for example, I've compared this framework and what you get in excellence models with Lean, Six Sigma, and ISO, for example. So if people are interested in that, they can take a look. But for me, as a professional, I thought when I discovered these excellence models and I looked at how robust they were, and I looked at the interrelationships, you know, between the best management practices and the principles and so forth, and how it's all aligned with the direction that an organization is going. I was pretty impressed, and then impressed as well when I've done work with all sorts of different organizations over time in this area, and I've seen such remarkable improvement. I like to call it happy work because you get such tremendous results. It's just wonderful to be able to celebrate along the way with the clients that are taking this on.
So we have another question from the chat from Bradley. He's asking, what do you see as a difference between organizational excellence and lean?
Well, you know, an organizational excellence, as I said, it's a really nice big umbrella under which all of these key management areas and best management practices and principles that describe the culture, they all fit. And lean, you'll find that in the work processes area, because you're looking at things that you can do in an organization to eliminate waste and duplication and this sort of thing, to run leaner and meaner at the end of the day. But it's just, you know, a set number of practices. You know, let's say there's about, let's say, 8 or so areas that you're looking at in terms of creating a leaner organization. It's like ISO 9001. I mean, there's about, you know, 21 practices there that you're looking at implementing. Whereas if you look at an excellence model, I mean, for micro-size organizations, there's 51 practices. And for larger size organizations, there's 102 practices. And I would encourage you to take a look at the practices that are in the organizational excellence framework, because it's very robust. And it seems like anything that people are coming up with these days, and in terms of the latest approach that's going to be, you know, you're able to work with in an organization and get results. And an example is, let's say, becoming more agile, becoming more resilient, and so forth. I mean, these being more innovative, these things are all included in an excellence model. And I must say, I've been working as a management consultant for over 30 years, and I have not come across an issue in an organization that's keeping that CEO up at night that can't be addressed by an excellence model. It's a wonderful diagnostic. And if you really get to understand the interrelationships within it, between the practices and the principles and so forth, you're on the road to really delivering value. So I can't, this is just my experience that I'm sharing with you. It's provided a lot of value to me in terms of the work I'm doing with organizations and to my own organizations as well.
Great. So a number of people were asking about whether, a number of people, I guess they joined late, they're asking whether they'll be receiving a copy of this webinar. And the answer is yes. We have recorded this whole session, including the Q&A. And afterwards, I'll send an email to that link, as well as links to some other materials that I felt came up in, I guess, the presentation itself, as well as the Q&A. Like Dawn, you mentioned you had some articles that you published. If you could send me those links, I'll also include that and send that to the broader audience.
Certainly, I'd be pleased to do that.
Any other questions? I guess just with a few minutes left, Dawn, do you want to address maybe the cost of implementation?
Certainly. With the process or the implementation process that I shared, I must say that when an organization takes a look at the cost of, let's say, working with an external professional to kind of guide and assist with implementation, that it really doesn't cost an awful lot to bring someone in like myself or people in our firm to assist with the excellence journey. Because really we're there transferring knowledge, we're there coaching, providing additional training, and we're working with them to answer the questions they have or roll up our sleeves and do, small projects. And that's an absolute fraction of the work that's going on. Because when you deploy the improvement plan and all the things that an organization needs to work on over time, all of that work is distributed across employees. And those employees are using just a fraction of their time to work on certain things as individuals or on committees. And so that's where the bulk of the cost is that very small percentage of time that employees are taking to contribute to the excellence journey that the organization is on. And so I find typically the cost involves, and if I kind of taking a look at overall most organizations I've worked with, the cost really is doing those introductory webinars or workshops where you're transferring information about the excellence model and the excellence journey that an organization is going on and why, answering the why question and educating them about the assessment and that sort of thing. That is that cost up front to do those workshops or a session that could be delivered online. It's the time that you might take to coach or do any additional training. And usually organizations need additional training in one or two key management areas if they're wanting to address issues that are facing them. And all of our workshops are one-day workshops, so this isn't a large amount of time that people are spending in a classroom. So there might be a couple more of those workshops. And then there's time on the coaching and any assistance that you might provide. And every organization is different. Some organizations have really got a lot of talent within and they've got the time to work on this. And so they don't spend much more time with us. Other organizations need a little bit more help or need a lot of help. And so they're spending a bit more on the cost. But the overall cost is really a fraction of the improvement that is realized in the organization. So it's not that expensive. And if people are going to take advantage of the publication and take advantage of the workshops or the toolkit that we've developed, the assessment and reporting tool and so forth, they can do an awful lot at a very, very low cost.
Great. So we actually have 3 more questions that came through the chat. And I say in the interest of time, let's take these as the final 3 questions, if you agree, Dawn.
Yes, certainly.
Okay. So first question's from Ed Kemmerling. He's asking, what percentage of organizational excellence comes from leadership behavior, and what percentage comes from implementation of tools such as management principles?
Well, if we take a look at all the practices, number one, I think leadership is really, really important because you've got to get the commitment of leadership to go on this excellence journey and to say to the organization that this is important and this is what we're doing. If you take a look in the leadership area, there's about 15 practices or so forth that are involved with leadership. But the remainder, if you take a look at those practices in the publication and you take a look at how those practices are related to developing a culture and related to the other practices, you'll find there's an awful lot of touch points. So all of the other, tools and techniques and implementation and all that sort of thing. I mean, it's all interrelated and interconnected. And don't forget, there's 100 and for most, small, medium, large size organization, there's 102 practices there. The 15 or so practices in leadership are just a a small percentage of those practices, but leadership is very, very important, because it's at the leadership level. It makes such a difference to an organization if they hear the leader saying, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going, inviting everybody to participate in the excellence journey. It is much easier for the organization to go on this journey and be successful than it is, let's say, if excellence, the fire starts burning in a given department. I mean, it takes a while for the department to show results and to win the rest of the organization over, and get leadership to agree to apply it to everything. So I would say, yes, leadership's very important, and it is very important to this whole exercise, but don't forget that those practices in leadership are interrelated and interconnected to all the other practices in the framework.
Makes sense. Another question now from G. Valencia. Do you have any early experiences with digital transformations and organizational excellence assessments?
So with transformations?
Digital transformation.
Oh, digital. Oh, yeah. I'll tell you what, in this area, there's one thing I notice about clients is that they're all using, technology, but, some are using a rainbow of technology and they haven't trained their people to use it. And you see, different levels of deployment in the organization. I see a lot of organizations that have adopted technology, but they really haven't proven that it's going to make a difference, and it's going to make a positive contribution before adopting it. That said, I mean, we're doing work in that area ourselves because we've got this automated assessment and reporting tool, and it's allowing us to save a lot of time and money on the work that we do. And it's a saving that, I've never been able to experience that much in consulting before. So it's great to be able to pass that along to the clients too. And that automated tool is also allowing us to do this global research study we're doing right now, where we're taking a look at, we're doing the first global assessment on the current state of organizational excellence. So we've got 350 researchers working around the world, inviting organizations to participate in this. So we get a good read on what's going on by organization size, industry, sector, and country. And without that automated tool, without the analytics, without the automated dashboards and that sort of thing, this work would really be a lot more time consuming and expensive than it is already. So digital transformations, I think one thing we're seeing from the study too is that organizations around the world are not showing a lot of strength right now in terms of using emerging technologies to their advantage. And I have seen very few organizations actually that are using digital tech means to really improve the performance of their organizations. I'm seeing it start, but I see a lot of confusion. There's so much coming at organizations. I don't think they know where to turn. They're getting a lot of messages out there in the marketplace about try this or try that, and this is great or that's great. But I think what you have to do is slow down, and you really have to take a look at technology, and you have to really work with it to determine whether or not it's going to work well for you. And if indeed it does make an improvement, then by all means adopt it. But I say, you got to be careful with that. We're in an environment right now where there's change coming at us at lightning speed.
Makes sense. One last question from Keval. Will culture impact implementation model? In other words, how do you assess organizational culture before trying to implement any kind of organizational excellence model?
Well, we have a teaser assessment actually on our website, and it's free for anybody to use. And you can get people in your organization to complete it. They self-assess against the 9 principles. And the nice thing about the assessment tool is that when you put your cursor over the statement or the rating scale, it automatically brings up more information. So everybody's assessing the same thing at the end of the day. But if you assess on those 9 principles, it gives you a read on where your culture is right now. To what extent do you have that commitment to excellence? And that is a really good place to start, because you'll get a free report back too. And the feedback report, it reiterates the ratings that you've got on these 9 principles that describe a culture. And it also, for the low rated items, gives you feedback on what that low rating might be related to in terms of the practices within the rest of the excellence framework. And so it gives you a good idea where you might want to look in order to make improvements. So it's a really, pretty good value report that gets a lot of organizations off to a good start. I think it's always most powerful if you can get as many people as possible in an organization to weigh in on something like this. And so you might want to take those 9 principles and do a little bit of a survey or a workshop in your organizations and go through it and come up with some aggregate ratings and then put those into the system and then generate the feedback report. But that's a great first start. It's like, where are we at today? And where do we need to go in the future? Because we'll know by deploying the best management practices over time, you'll be able to develop a much stronger culture that is committed to excellence.
Great. I know we're a few minutes over time, Dawn, but I guess we're still getting more questions here in the chat room. Did you want, I don't know what your schedule is. I want to respect, I guess, your schedule. Did you want to take any more questions, or
I'd be pleased to take some questions, because so often we have these webinars and the room's quiet, and so I think if we've got some questions, let's carry on the discussion.
Okay, great. So next question is from Rod. He asks, are there quantifiable measurements of improvement within the standard toolkit, or are they developed at the start of the initiative?
There's what's included in the section on performance measures are all the measures that are commonly used around the world by high-performing organizations. And so you get quite a number of measures in each of the key management areas. And then you get also about 12 measures that help you measure the overall, give you a read on overall organizational performance. And so there's 4 measures in particular that are recommended for micro-size organizations. And that's the quality of the product or service, customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and financial results. But for a larger organization, and they're wanting a balanced system of measurement across the key management areas, they're wanting to kind of select 6 or 8 measures that really give them good feedback on the balance system so that they really know how they're doing in a key management area. And all of these are quantifiable measures. There's instructions in the publication about, really how to measure and how to use the results. And then, of course, I think in individual industry sectors, they all have their own measures that they want tracked, and so they can compare their performance within that sector. And so these would be additional measures. For example, in an education system, they might be looking at student test scores, or in a hospital, they might be looking at wait times. And so these are additional industry-specific measures. But what you'll find in the framework is all the commonly used measures across high-performing organizations in all of these key management areas and for the organization as a whole. And that's a really great place to start, because then if you're going to benchmark your performance with other organizations, at least you're using a handful of measures that others are using. And they're all quantifiable, absolutely.
Great. We have a question from Dell. He's asking, how do you link quality and organizational excellence?
Well, the linking quality, everything that we know in quality with the approaches, the tools and techniques, and there's so many, good approaches, tools and techniques. There's no doubt about that. But organizational excellence models provide a huge umbrella under which all of that fits and a lot more. And so you're going to find that organizational excellence really provides that robust management system that you want to have in place in an organization. And, you know, you're going to want to put those practices in place. And in doing so, you're going to be able to use a lot of these quality tools and techniques that you learn about to provide additional value and maybe even dive a little deeper. Because the organizational excellence framework is meant to be the general, you know, practices that we want in place in organizations, the step-by-step implementation guidelines. It doesn't take a deeper dive into certain specialty areas, such as, let's say, Six Sigma, that you need to have a specialist come in and do that particular work for you in that area. But what it does is it gives you all of the practices that are used by high-performing organizations and the implementation guidelines that go along with it, so that you have a really good, solid foundation in place for your management system. And then it allows you to take a deeper dive as you wish in some of these, using some of these more sophisticated techniques.
Okay. We have a follow-up question from Ed. He's asking, what is the gauge R&R of the cultural assessment?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? What is the gauge?
What is the gauge R&R of the cultural assessment?
Oh, that's the rewards, and I think the R&R, you mean the rewards and recognition?
Actually, I'm not familiar with this term. If I guess if Ed can clarify.
There's so many acronyms out there these days that I know I'm thinking, I hear R&R and I think, okay, rewards and recognition, you know, but it might mean something different to somebody else.
Oh, okay. So reliability and repeatability. I believe this is a Lean Six Sigma term.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, again, that's in the work processes area, and that's the area where we're looking to document and manage and analyze and improve our work processes. And what we're striving for is consistency in our work processes, so that we're at a desired level of performance and that we're always looking at improving that performance, you know, day in and day out. This is where we're taking corrective action if problems occur, or we're looking at how do we prevent the recurrence of those problems. And we're benchmarking with others to evaluate performance. And when we benchmark with others, we're learning about what some organizations that really perform well in certain areas are doing, you know, so we can learn from them. So reliability and repeatability, I mean, is very, very important. I mean, consistency is what we're striving for, you know, to be able to do these work processes day in and day out, consistency at a certain level. And always striving to up that level, so to speak. So it's certainly in this in the model, and there's, you know, the practices are discussed with a view towards that consistency. I might just say too, I've really tried, because I'm a management consultant and because we work on implementing these practices with clients. That's kind of where we live, you know. I think that this model is a little bit different from sometimes what we see in the quality literature as well, because it speaks the language of management, and it uses a strategic approach with an organization, so we can easily explain to an organization, given their strategic direction, you know, where they're heading and where they want to be, how this can help them with that. So how this aligns with their strategic imperatives, how it's going to help them achieve what they want to achieve. So we have that strategic discussion with them in a holistic sense. So here's how the whole organization has got to be working for you to deliver that mission, for you to achieve that vision, for you to get the results that you're looking to attain. And that's a little bit different sometimes than when I I work a lot with different quality professionals, but sometimes different professionals are using a language that the client may not understand all that well. But you can't go wrong with speaking the language of business, speaking in those everyday terms that organizations are using to discuss the work that they're doing and what they need to do in order to improve.
We have another question follow-up question from Kaval. He's asking, nowadays leaders are more focused towards adapting business agility models. Is your organizational excellence model more robust in nature and adaptable as per shifting customer demands?
Yeah, I realize that agile and agility models are a topic these days that are very important and getting a lot of attention. But I don't think that the agility, Lean, Six Sigma, and other approaches like even ISO, they're approaches that really offer a subset of practices. And I don't think you're going to get that long-term platform for organizational success that you're going to get with an excellence model. That said, important to take a look at, well, what's different? What else do agility models offer us? Is there something we can learn from that we can add to what we're doing? But I think we'd be hard pressed to find anything. So I'd be careful about that. I mean, as a management consultant, I've seen flavors of the week and hot topics pop up over the last 30 years. And what I've observed is that most of what people are selling and talking about fit within an excellence model, and you can find them. You can find those practices there, and the magic really is putting all of these practices in place in an organization. You know, taking the time, making the effort to do that, so that you do develop a culture that is committed to excellence, because it's that culture that is so very valuable in helping an organization get where it wants to go, and you in turn are able together to achieve absolutely exceptional results across a balanced system of measurement. And I don't know of another approach or tool or technique that offers that. I haven't seen anything in my 30 years of management consulting and my own ongoing professional development. It's just, that's why I like to talk about it. I have these webinars and do the work that I do and try to invite people to take advantage of this, because it's very, very powerful. And it's really kind of sad that only 10 to 20% of the working population even knows about this. I think we could really make a difference, not only to our organizations, but some of our global issues by using this sort of approach across organizations.
Great. So I don't see any other questions now in the chat room. There's I guess, a fairly interesting conversation going on amongst many of the participants, but I'm just looking for specific questions. And I think you've covered all the questions that I see.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for organizing this webinar. I'm glad we've had good attendance and good participation at the session. I love all the questions, and I invite people to join with us for a more detailed discussion in the longer program, Organizational Excellence Defined.
Yeah, actually, speaking of that, I just received a private chat asking if you could say a few words about the Organizational Excellence Defined program. I can also do that afterwards as well.
Yeah, I just to give you a snapshot of it. A lot of the components in the program are really very similar to our foundational workshop that we deliver, that take people through a bit more detail on excellence models and the research that has really showed that doesn't matter what size or type of organization, putting an excellence model in place makes a big difference when it comes to developing that culture of excellence and achieving exceptional results. And then we'll talk about the Turnkey toolkit and a little bit, in a little bit more detail. And then we're going to give the participants in the series a chance to self-assess their organization using the teaser assessment and the full assessment. And then they'll get a chance to compare where their organization sits and how it measures up to other organizations around the globe. So they'll be able to compare their results to others on this global organizational index that we've developed. And we've got really good response from around the world so far. So you'll be able to see, how you're measuring up against your counterparts by size, industry, sector, and country.
Great. So I'm sorry, I'm just responding to a number of the private chats that come through. But I will be following up with everyone with a copy of this recording. Thanks again, Dawn, for hosting this. This has been very, very informative, especially the Q&A. I see we have a lot of very engaged participants. As I said, I'll also be adding additional links to some of the other stuff that you covered, like your articles. You mentioned a teaser assessment. I'll also include a link to that. And I guess anything else that you want to share with the group, feel free to send that to me, and I'll include that in the email that'll go out.
Okay, certainly will. And it's been my pleasure presenting today and enjoying the discussion with all of those that have attended.
Great. Thank you, Dawn. We're getting a lot of thanks in the chat. I don't know if you can see that at all. But
oh, no, I can't. But thanks for letting me know. I appreciate that.
Great. Yeah, I'll try to download a copy of the chat log and send that to you as well.
Okay, fantastic. I'd look forward to that. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, and I guess just one final thing, because I'm trying to read all the comments in the chat, but it's going very quickly. If I miss anything, feel free to send me an email directly. It's dave@flevy.com, flevy.com. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Dawn.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.